So as you can see here, this is what I'm having for us today in this tutorial. I'm having a plain image here, and I'm going to show you how you can literally add border image to your photos here, just like what I'm having here. I'm going to show you how you can actually add border image to it. And on the second stage, I'm going to show you how you can add linear gradient to your border image. Instead of having real image, I'm going to show you how you can add linear gradient also to your image, just like what I'm having here at the top of my screen. And I have two images here. This the first image here, which is inside a folder called images. The first image is this my background image that I'm having, and the second image is this image 17, which I'm going to use for my border image. That's all I'm having. And for my HTML here, I only have a div here. This is the just div I'm having here. So let's get back to my style sheet. But one thing I want you guys to take note is while using border image, you have to give it a very thick border, because everything we're going to use is going to be within this our border. So first thing I'm going to give is to give a border, let's say of 15 pixel. If you give it a 15 pixel, you have to give it a weight, because if without this weight, it's not going to show. So let's give it a solid. Let me make it to be 15 pixels solid. If I save it here, now we are having a black border of 15 pixels that is showing, but I believe you are not actually seeing it clearly. So let me change it to a white color so you can actually see it clearly. Now we are seeing a white border that is appearing. So that's the first stage. The second stage now is to show you that when we're dealing with border image property, we're dealing with actually 5 properties involved. So the first property is the border image source, which is the source of the image. The second is the border image slice. The third is the border image repeat. The fourth is the border image weight, and the fifth is the border image outset. But don't worry if you're getting confused while I'm listing these properties. We're going to go step by step, and I'm going to explain everything you need to know about these properties. So first, let's start with border image source, which serves just like background image. So if I give this a border image source, so I'm going to declare the URL. So it's going to be URL, and don't forget I have a folder called images with an image in it. So I'm going to write images here, and I'm going to click, and it's showing me the list of my images that are inside my folder. So I'm going to click image 17. So when I save here, this is where actually things get a little bit weird, because I'm having my image here, which is now stacking on top at the end corners of my border, which I don't want it to be like that. But the reason it's behaving like this is because it doesn't actually know what I want my images to be like. That's why it's actually stacking on end corners of my border. So that is where another property comes to, which is border image slice. So I'm going to give a border image slice here. So what this property does is it literally slices the image. As the name goes, slice. That's literally what it does. It slices the image. So if I give this 100% here, we're not actually seeing any changes, but I can decide giving it a 10%. Now we're seeing a little bit of changes here in my border image slice, and it's actually looking not as how I want it to be. So let me take this to like 25%. If I take this to be 25%, now my image is appearing a little bit, but this is actually not how I want the image to be. So that is where the other property now comes to place, because everything is depending on the next property. So as you saw, the border image source was depending at the border image slice. Now my border image slice is also depending on another property called border image repeat. So let me declare this property now, border image repeat. So by default, it is in repeat. So when I save here, now what you're seeing is now it is repeating the image. That's literally what just happened right now. Now after slicing the image to the way I want it to appear, now it is repeating the image. That's what is happening now. Apart from repeat, we have another value for this property, which is border image stretch. So what this does is, like as the name goes, stretch, it's going to stretch the image. Now it is stretching the image. It is no more repeating the image, but it is stretching the image. So after this stretch, we have another one, which is the combination of stretch and repeat. So what it does is it's going to stretch the image a little bit, and repeat it and keep repeating it. So let me put now here round. This is the value. Border image round is the combination of border image repeat and border image stretch. So as you can see what is happening right now, it is a little bit much bigger than when I was putting border image repeat. Now it is repeating my image, at the same time it is stretching it a little bit. That's actually what it does. So let me leave this at round. If I leave this at round here, this is where the other property comes. This declares the weight of this your image, how you want it to be. So if I give this a border image weight, determines the weight of the image and how you want the weight to be. So if I decide giving this a 10 pixel, now as you can see now, the size of this my border has reduced. It has reduced to like 10 pixels. And the more I go down, if I give it half of 10, which is 5 pixels, now it's going to go more smaller than it was before. But let me give it, okay, now a 20 pixel, and let's see how it's going to be. Now I'm having a 20 pixel weight of my border image, and it's looking a little bit better than when it was 5 pixel, but it's still looking not as how I want it to be. So let me make it to be at least, let's say 17 pixel. Now it's a little bit good. It's a little bit good and like how it was. So as I said earlier, when it comes to this kind of border image things, it actually depends on the kind of image you're using for your border radius. You're actually going to play with the values to see which one fits your own style, which one fits the way you want it to be when it comes to yours, because it depends on the kind of image you're using. If as it means I'm using another image, these values that I'm giving is not going to work to the way this one is working. This is where another property comes, which is border image outset. What this outset does is you can actually move position of this your image. So let me show you what I'm talking about. If I make this a border image outset, if I give it a value of let's say 10 pixel, and I want you guys to actually see what's just going to happen now. If you notice here, my image moved a little bit up. If you didn't notice that, let me give it a 30 here, so that you can actually see what is happening. Now if you notice here, my image is moving 30 pixels up, and that is why if you look at this my image now it's having a space around it. So but let me give it to be 0. If I make this to be 0 pixel, now I'm having a little bit good image that is appearing right now. And there's another thing I want to show you. What if I want this my border image to be the whole of this background image of this my photo that I'm having? What if I want that? In this case, even though because I'm having a designed border image, it's not going to work. It's going to look somehow. But sure, I will explain more of it when we come to using linear gradient, because I have more things that I want to show you guys when it comes to linear gradient in border image property. So if I give this a fill, when I come to this my border image slice here, and I give this a fill, now it's going to use my border image to be the whole background image of this my photo. So when I say here, now you can actually see what is happening now. My border image now is the whole of my background image. Literally this is what is happening. But it's not looking good because I'm the kind of border image I'm having. But I will explain more when we come to now linear gradient, and I will show you more things that you can actually do with border image when we reach to linear gradient. So let me remove this fill because it's not making any. So this is another example I have for you. As you can see here in my HTML, I just have a container with first card, second card, and third card, and all of them has a class name of F card, S card, and T card. So that's all I have here, and I don't have much styling that I did here. It's just a display flex and justify content and some gap between them. So the first thing I'm going to do now, this is my F card, which I'm going to target first, and I'm going to show you guys how you can actually add a linear gradient to your borders, just like what I'm having here in my browser, something like this. But I'm going to target just the top part of my border, so which is going to be border. But instead of me writing border top, I'll just make it a border block, of start. So I want to make it to be a little bit thick, so I'm going to write 15 pixel solid, and I believe that's all. If I make a 15 pixel solid, now I'm having a 15 pixel solid. So what I'm going to do now here is is to give it a border image. So what I'm going to do now is to give it a border as how we did it earlier. It's the same thing. So it's going to be border image and it's going to be source. So within this source, now I'm going to write linear gradient. If you don't know much about linear gradients, I have a video in it. I'll put a link in the description box so that you can actually go and learn more about linear gradients. So what I'm going to do now is to give it a red and a blue. By the time I save here, now it's not appearing. That's because we haven't given our border image slice. So even if it comes to linear gradient, we have to give this border image slice. So I'm going to give a border image and don't forget dash slice. So we're going to put 12 pixels here. So now the reason it's not appearing is not because we're doing something wrong, but it's because we haven't declared our border image slice. So even in this case that we're dealing with the gradient, we have to declare this border image slice. That's the reason it's not appearing. So let me give this a 1%. If I give this a 1%, now I'm having a border at the top. That's why we declared it a border block start, which will only be visible top of the border. But if you look at it now, we are dealing with linear gradient and we are just having a solid red. The reason is because literally our gradient is there, but we are only having a red solid color. But the reason is because linear gradient by default is from top to bottom. And now we are dealing with left to right. So that's the reason. But if I come to this just before this my red color here, and I give it a 90 degrees, and don't forget to put your comma. And the moment I save, now I'm having a linear gradient. As you can see, it started from red here, now it started blending, now it came to blue. So this is actually one of the ways you can add a linear gradient to your borders. I can actually just remove this my border here so that it can be the whole border. I can remove it and also remove this I'll leave it here. I can add padding here, a padding of maybe let's say 10 pixels, so that I can have a little bit of space so that it can be first cut. If you look at it now, I'm having a linear gradient here. It's consuming all part of my border. I can actually, in this case, I can remove this 90 degrees here. I can take it down and it's gone. The reason is because I have comma here. If I bring it back, now my linear gradient is back. I can make it to be 45 degrees. So it just depends the way you play with the values here. Now it's 45 degrees red, then to blue. If you look at it now, we're having a border leader. So what we're going to do now next is to move to the next second card, which I'm going to show a different example you can use in this case. For this my second card, I'm just having a width and an aspect ratio. So the first one I'm going to do, I'm going to target just the top part of my border. So what I'm going to do is border block start. Then I'm going to make it 15 pixel solid. Now I'm having a top border of 14 pixels solid. So what I'm going to do now is to create a border image. A border image source, which is going to be linear gradient. And it's going to be red. And it's going to be blue. If I save here, it's not working. That's because we haven't declared our border image slice. So we're going to click here and give it a border image. So I'm going to give a border and just give it a 12%. Now we're having a solid red. If you may remember earlier, I mentioned the reason we're having a solid red is because it's coming from top to bottom. And in this case, we need it to be from left to right. So we're going to come here and give a 90 degrees. A 90 degrees here. And don't forget to put your comma. So the moment I save, now we're having a 90 degrees. But I want it to be 50% complete red and 50% complete blue. But in this case, we are having it to be a little bit blend. And I don't want it to be blend. I want it to be complete red, complete 50% complete red, 50% complete blue. So what we're going to do now is to come to this just before, after this my red color. I'm going to give a 50% here. And the moment I save here, if you notice here, I'm having a complete 50% here, then it started blending. So what I'm going to do now is to come back to this my blue also, just after this my blue color, and give a 50% here. Now we are not going to have any place that is going to be blend. We are going to have complete 50% red and 50% blue. So this is my third card, and in this case we're also going to look at a different style we can use to give a gradient to this our border. Since we give a different style to the first card, we give a different style to the second card. So in this case we're going to give also a different style that you can actually use for your third card. So what I'm going to do now is to actually target my top border, which is border, and I'm going to give it a block start, which is going to be 15 pixel solid. The moment I save here, now I'm having my top border. So I'm going to target my left border. So I'm going to write border. Then in this case, it's going to be inline, not block. Then start, which is going to be 15 pixel solid. Now I'm having my border to be by the left hand side and my border to be by the top hand side. So what I'm going to do now after having this is I'm going to give it a border image source as usual, as I did to all the other images, border image source. And we're going to also use linear gradient. So the first one we're going to do now is, we're not going to use linear gradient, we're going to use radial gradient. We're going to use radial gradient. So the first thing I'm going to do is to give it a cycle, then at top left, as I said earlier, if you don't know much about linear gradient and radial gradient, I made a video on them. I will put the link in the description box so that you can actually go and understand more and more about how they work, and everything you need to know about them is I've explained everything about linear and radial gradient. So please feel free to go and check it out after watching this tutorial. So what I'm going to do, as I said, for my rating, this I'm not going to use linear gradient, I'm going to use radial gradient, cycle at top left. So what I'm going to do now is to give it a color, the color that I'm going to use. So I'm going to give it a lime green first, and it's going to be, the second color is going to be transparent. Now I'm having a lime green color and it's transparent. So even if I save here, if you notice here, we're just having this, my lime green here. And if you remember, as I said earlier and I said it again, we need to put our border image slice. It is very important for it to work. So we're going to put border image slice, and we're going to put it to be 1%. Now we're having our image, but we're not actually seeing the transparent part. So what I'm going to do now is to give it this transparent to be 50%. If I make it to be 50% and I save, if you notice here, this is actually what we're having here. I'm having my transparent now to be 50%. If you notice here, this is how it started. Our lemon green started here blending, it started here going up, but the moment it started reaching to the end of it, now it became transparent. That's how, as it been, it was another color here. Maybe if I put, maybe let's say red. Now instead of being transparent, we're going to have a red color. I made it to be transparent so that you can actually know that there are other ways you can also use your linear and radial gradient. So let me bring it back to transparent. I hope this video is helpful, and I hope you have actually gained something out of this video. If this video is helpful, please kindly like the channel and please tell me your experience while watching this video. And if you also want to join us in this journey of exploring web development, please kindly subscribe to the channel so that we can work together. Thank you very much for your time.